with the Jeter run organization, to me, it seemed like they really came in there like, we have a plan. We're gonna change a lot of things. They tried to do some Yankee-ish things, bring in some people that Jeter was friends with from his Yankee days. Almost a little bit secretive to me at times with things, when I feel like just be open and have fun because it's baseball. So what have you seen now with this next step of the Marlins with Kim Ng in the front office? But really, it's not just the GM spot. It's really the entire organization. In my mind, people I've talked to and when I've been down there, it just feels more loose and fun and not so serious. Am I onto something?
Yeah, was I nodding my head enough? Yes. Yeah. Yes, all those things. I think Kim did a great job of bringing Ozzo Campo from the Astros. She's there. I think there's 2 or 3. Yeah, there's 3 assistant GMs. So she likes having different voices. So it's not everybody just an echo chamber thinking the same thoughts. Unfortunately, the home run sculpture is still outside the ballpark. I still miss it. But yes, it feels different. Unfortunately, the mess we talk about, whether it's like not enough impact bats or this and that, or if the Marlins have to trade guys, it's because of that stretch when the new ownership took over and Jeter was in charge, where they missed on a lot of high picks, whether it's JJ Bleday, who was just in town with the A's, or honestly, they haven't had a position player that's been drafted that's been impactful over the last 4 or 5 years, and that's why they've had to lean on the pitching. They've hit on almost all the pitchers, it seems like. But yeah, it feels different. And actually, something before I came on, I heard you guys talking about people want to recreate what the Rays are doing and whatnot. That's an organization Kim references a lot, whether it's them or the Guardians. But it makes sense for the kind of market the Marlins are, and people not really showing up yet, even though the team is winning. That they've kind of have to be smart and develop their own players.
Yes, they do. They need to get their attendance up, Christina. Let's get some people coming. I mean, the Dolphins, they pack it out. There's
so much talent and good teams down there that it's hard.
Yeah, oh, that's what it is. Man. You know what the problem is? They're all at that Coral Gables to watch the Cocaines lose again. Jeez, I mean, that's what it is.
Harsh.
Christina, thank you. Make sure you listen to FS1 tonight to my calling of the Royals.
Oh, can't
Marlins. Wait. And before we let you go, just say one thing. Take your both hands out like this.
No.
Go like this,
chance.
And then say, go Gators. We'll see you in the Super Regionals.
I cannot. I did have one relative that went to Florida. I actually grew up a Seminole, and I went to Miami. So I know. Ever since, I think Scott and I went to UM, we haven't been too relevant other than basketball. Exactly. We're a basketball school now.
Jim Larnick.
We're basketball.
That's by far.
You guys are a basketball
Men's
school.
and women's basketball was my thing. When I went there,
just as we predicted.
No, football was it. That's why AJ said to me, he's like, "Oh, do you hate like UF FSU?" I was like, they really haven't been good or relevant in like 15 years.
None of them have.
No. I want to just go right to the top question that I think is on the mind of national fans of the sport. Are the Marlins going to buy or sell at the deadline? AK, are they actually going for it this year if they're in the 500-ish range? And the division looks like it does right now with the Braves. And then the Mets and Phillies kind of underperforming right now.
Right. Well, it's funny you ask, because I guess my first day back on Friday, we talked to Kim Ng and I asked her that. And even the matter of, would you try to get a deal done before the trade deadline? And she says they're always looking. And obviously for them, it's going to be a bat, an impact bat. And it's kind of remarkable what they've been able to do without Jazz Chisholm Jr. Avisail Garcia, since he signed his contract, has underperformed. 2 of the starting pitchers are hurt. But yeah, I mean, she mentioned something, and it kind of leads to what you said. It's not even just in the division, like underperforming, but all of the National League East in general has kind of been lackluster. That the Marlins are in playoff position right now, even though they haven't played their best baseball.
Not playing their best baseball. What the heck's wrong with Sandy? 5 ERA, I know he pitched 7 innings, 5 runs last, but he's got a 5 ERA. What? This dude was unhittable last year. What's happened?
Right. So yesterday was one of those really weird fluke. They had 5 run outbursts in 1 inning. 2 of the balls didn't leave the infield. He threw a ball away. Part of the problem is the run game now. He was never good at holding runners, so that's an issue. Mechanical stuff he's been dealing with. I think he set the bar so high last year that, no offense, but it's probably can only be worse in a sense, but it's weird because it's like Zach Wheeler struggling, I think, with the Phillies. Dylan Cease has been with the White Sox, so it's not just him. I don't know if it's all these innings catching him to him as well. He's thrown over 400 plus in the past 2 years, and that's something pitching coach Mel Sonmai Jr. had warned about last year, is that they need to monitor that, because after a while it caught up to some of his former pitchers, whether it was Max Scherzer or like a Zach Greinke and stuff.
So you're down there every day. You see this team. How soon is this team going to make the playoffs?
It could be this year. I mean, if their starting pitching has always been the strength, and that's what they've built upon, and it has underachieved so far this year, and they're already 4 games over 500, which hasn't been done by the team since 2017, I believe. Just to put in perspective how tough things have been down here. Skip Schumacher's had a great influence on the club, bringing over that winning mentality from the Cardinals. So if they play their cards right, unintended, it could be this year, especially if the Mets and the Phillies keep underperforming, and the rest of the National League.
Well, the reason I asked that is because I don't think it's going to be this year, and I feel like it's going to slowly, and I think you believe that it might not be this year. It's slowly going down. To me, I see this team at the earliest contending on a consistent basis 3 years. So why not try to trade somebody like Sandy and really build up what you have? Even though his stock might be lower, but now you're actually getting somebody that, hey, you know what? You could get somebody and really start filling out what they don't have.
I think the problem is how many times this South Florida has been burnt by that. After the 97 team, after 2003, a couple years later with the Miguel Cabrera trade, then obviously when this new ownership group took over, trading away Stanton, Yelich, Ozuna, and Realmuto eventually, even though those guys never even finished 500 in season, the parts were very much greater than the sum. I think if they do that again, I think that's part of why they probably are cautious about doing that, is even if maybe, let's say it is a smart move by, some people's opinion, if they do that, the public, look to it won't be great. The optics won't be. And once again, it goes back to their starting pitching. They've got the starting pitching now, so if they can plug in holes here and there, I think that's the belief that they have, is their starting pitching can compete with anybody else. They win so many one-run games because of that starting pitching. It's not because of the offense. And their bullpen has been very, very solid as well. So that's why they believe.
How's Skip Schumacher doing there? Kratzy always talks about him. Kratzy, what do you say about him?
He's got such a nice butt. He is so cute, and you're not going to be able to take your eyes off it. That's what he does. Everybody has a superpower. That's Skip's.
And it's not just Kratzy. That's just crowdsourced around, right? That's what everyone says.
Yep.
One of our colleagues keeps on.
True.
Yeah, I mean, right? All the different. One of our colleagues, he keeps on chickening out on asking Skip for his workout routine. So I'm hoping one day just to break the ice for our pregame scrum, just ask him, "What do you do to work out?"
Christina, I have
glutes.
I'm doing the game tonight for FS1, Royals Marlins.
Okay, you go. You got the rest. You got the next.
No.
9 minutes.
I'm going to say this. We get 15 minutes with Skip. Next time I'm going to ask him today. I'm going to tell him. All the reporters are scared to ask you. So tomorrow I want you to come to the media scrum, Skip, and I want you to just start doing squats. And when they ask what you're doing, say, "This is my workout routine every day."
Good.
I just want to see the look on other, and then I'm going to ask them to film it so I can see
split
everyone.
squats. It's split squats.
Split squats.
Yeah, it's more glute centric.
Ah, got it. I'll just have do a lunge and just start going up and down.
Right.
That would be great. That'd be entertaining. It change up the media scrum. Christina, what you said they're not winning on offense, but their offense has been good. Larissa Rise hitting 392, obviously. But then you look at De La Cruz, you look at Sanchez. These guys have been hot. Gurriel's come over and had a great year for him compared to where he was in Houston. So something's clicking on offense.
Absolutely. Part of the problem, I guess, maybe they're getting what they, there's not the big names of like the Phillies with all their guys and the Mets. So the Marlins are making do with maybe lesser known names, especially on a national standpoint. Brian De La Cruz was one of the guys that MLB.com had put as a possible breakout. Jesus Sanchez is kind of finally living up to his former prospect status. Gurriel has been great. That was a minor league deal in March. The problem, I guess, is, Segura underachieving. And I think they lead the league in ground balls, double plays. Their ground ball rate is so high. So I guess the offense could be even better if they could cut down on that a bit, but it's a little bit easier said than done.
Yeah, true. But okay, so the thing that we talk about Scott, because he went to University of Miami, he doesn't believe in this stat, run differential. Minus 39 run differential. 7 worse than MLB, but they're over 500. So they're winning all the close games.
1 run record.
So 16-4, 1 run. So the water balances at some point. if they lose that edge, no.
It doesn't balance necessarily. Look up the Mariners the last couple of years.
Okay, fine. That's why I think I don't want to speak for Kratz, but I think when you look at it from the outside and you're not there every day like you are, you say they can't keep this up. You can't keep winning every one-run game. And that's why they're in the playoff race. That's why they're over 500 because of that record. It's not right.
Right. So it's obviously in a much smaller scale, but the 2020 Marlins had a really bad run differential, and they made it because of those one-run games they won, and they lost a lot of blowout games, and that's kind of been the case this season. I think there was one game they lost to the Braves, at least probably one or two, double digits, so that'll hurt. That's automatically, it only counts as one loss, but it was 10 plus run differential, so that's why it's misleading. You have those outlier games, but they're almost always in a game, whether they win it or lose it. It's usually within a few runs. It's very much like the Rays before this season when they, didn't get a lot of offense, but they were in everything because of their pitching.
So here's my thing. The Mariners have had a great bullpen the last couple of years. They're winning close games. So sometimes your run differential is not going to look great if you're a team that wins like that. My thing is, yes, you might be outperforming expectations a bit, but then, okay, let's say you feel like you're watching a team that was a little lucky lately. What if Sandy starts pitching like Sandy again? Then that'll level back. You know what I'm saying? Like it doesn't mean that what they did in the past is going to completely convert into what's going to happen for the rest of the season, which takes me to my next question. The second half of the season might have Sixto Sanchez. It was a guy we were just talking about, and we're going to talk about Strasburg coming up in a moment because it looks like he might be done as a pitcher. Clearly, that's not the case with Sixto, but we haven't seen him in a while. I know it's the shoulder. So what's the last report you've gotten? And do you think he could be the X factor down the stretch for the Marlins? Maybe even as a reliever, because they have plenty of starters.
Right. So we got an update on Friday. Unfortunately, he was finally seeing some game action, extended spring, and then he had a setback. I want to say maybe at this point a month ago. He's back to throwing again. I asked Kim, what can we expect for 2023? She says, it's up to him. He's still in their plans, obviously that kind of talent. I think Mel had said a month or two ago, or maybe even before during spring, that he was at his age when he first, hit the scene, more advanced than any pitcher he'd ever coached. So that just tells you what kind of talent he was. But Trevor Rogers is going to be back soon. Johnny Cueto, the Marlins would hope will be back at some point from his different injuries. The one name that I'm interested in is Jake Eder. He's one of their prospects. He returned to the mound yesterday for the first time in 22 months. When he had Tommy John surgery, was doing better than Max Meyer. It was before Yuri Perez was a thing. Before, I'm trying to think if there's another pitcher, but yeah. So he's one that would be very interesting, a very advanced arm that he could even be the one in the second half just comes out of nowhere. He's not on the 40-man, so you'd have to make space, but he's that kind of pitcher that he could be a dude.
All right, I got a catching question for you.
Yes.
Nick Fortes has taken the starting role. Can this team make the playoffs with Nick Fortes in there, or do they need Jacob Stallings' Gold Glove behind there? I get it. He's hitting 160. He's not holding his weight in that category.
Right. So I think the Marlins are one of the worst in terms of offense for the catching position. I go back to last year at one point. Don Mattingly had mentioned that Nick Fortes reminded him a bit of Will Smith, which is glowing praise considering he's an all-star. He was a Team USA catcher. I don't know if that's necessarily, he's that good, but he's definitely grown so much defensively, whether it's blocking, pitch framing. As you mentioned, he's kind of taken pretty much a starting job other than Sandy's sort of his personal catcher is Jacob. But I think right now that's who they'd be rolling with, those two. And just hope that they, their job, as Skip said, is to just handle the pitching staff. And then what they get offensively, ideally, they'd want more. But their thing is, once again, going back, is their pitching is their strength. So they just need those two to do their thing behind the plate and get the job done that way.
Hey, Christina, how incredible has Jorge Soler looked in your mind? And he has an opt-out after this season. So last year I'm watching him going, oh, good thing he signed that deal. He is sticking with it. Now I'm watching him going, actually, it's not the strongest free agent class. If he keeps this up, he's opting out. I mean, he's still very much in the prime of his career. So that's my only question when you start getting to buying and selling. I'm like, the Marlins don't feel like they're in it. Like that's definitely a big bat that people would be looking for. We saw what he did with the Braves a few years ago to help them win a title.
Yeah, absolutely. I asked, or someone asked the other day to Kim about Soler because of that opt out, and she said they hadn't spoken yet, but the Jorge Soler they've gotten this year is actually more than they expected or had hoped for when they signed him before last season. Last season he was kind of like what you'd expect out of him. This year he's just completely gone stretches where he's led the offense, and particularly on Jesus Luzardo's starts, is like an unreal stat that he's like gone deep and like basically all but like 3 or 4 of Luzardo's starts. But yeah, that's another thing. Once again, the buying and selling they're gonna have to balance is like whether it's a him or like a Joey Wendell or even maybe like pieces like a John Birdie or Garrett Hampson, or if they go bigger with some of their big names like Sandy. But once again, there's so much to play. It's what the Mets and the Phillies do. The Phillies kind of have that World Series hangover that you see so much every year. It's going to be interesting the summer here in South Florida.
Christina, great catching up with you. Thank you. Hopefully see you in person
Likewise.
soon down there.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to throw up to you one more time.
There it is. Thank you.
I just threw up again.